we thought about all that we've been doing and all the advocating that we've been doing, and the only solution that we come up with is why we're doing this is that Happy would have wanted us to. Because Happy cared so much for her other fellow human beings, but she always wanted to help people. So that's what drives us to keep doing what we do and to make sure that the word gets out there for not only our family, but all families with a missing person.
Welcome to The Scaries, brought to you by Razor Co. I'm Sky.
And I'm Talitha. We are proudly broadcasting from Treaty 4 and the homeland of the Métis. In each episode, we tackle the alarming, inconceivable, questionable, shocking, and scary statistics relating to, impacting, and intervening with the lives of women and girls worldwide.
You'll hear the scary truth, take away tools and tips, and learn about what you can do about it. And The Scaries is an opportunity for us to share our voices as women and supporters of women to make real change. As always, the opinions shared on this episode are solely our own, so take them with what you will. And note that we could be sharing some information that could be triggering to you, so please listen with caution.
As straight, cisgender, white, able-bodied settler women, we are very aware of the privilege that we have, and we want to use this platform to spread awareness about the scary reality that women from around the world face in different life situations.
And why?
Because sometimes nothing is scarier than being a woman.
Welcome back to another episode of The Scaries. And this week, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So we're really excited to kind of do something different and do a little bit of a change in our usual programming. So in honor of Missing Persons Week, which runs April 28th, to May 4th. Yes, those are the dates. This year's theme of Missing Persons Week is Stories, Not Statistics. So we've partnered with the YWCA Regina and All Nations Hope Network to bring you an in-person interview with a very, very brave family of a missing person from Saskatchewan. But before we invite them onto the pod, we'd like to share an important note about this year's Missing Persons Week theme, Stories, Not Statistics. So the theme shifts the focus away from numbers and emphasizes that missing persons are not just numbers. They are real people who are loved and deeply missed. They have loved ones and friends who remember them dearly and are left wondering where they are.
On that note, in this episode, we will share the high-level information on missing persons in Canada and then specifically in Saskatchewan as of the day that we're recording this episode, to provide insight into the magnitude of the issue and who is impacted. However, we will spend the bulk of this episode listening to our invited special guests who will share their personal experiences of having their loved one go missing. We feel so honored to have a family willing and able to travel so far as they did and take the time out of their busy days to speak with us today so openly. Having them here with us also makes us reflect on the large number of families who may not have the resources and networks to support them in raising awareness of their loved one's disappearance. And for those of you out there with untold, unknown missing persons experiences, please know that our hearts are with you.
So before we dive in, we always like to shed a little light on the background behind the theme or the topic, and today being Missing Persons Week. So really around this, we want to talk about the prevalence of missing people around Canada and what's being done about it. So what is Missing Persons Week all about? Well, Missing Persons Week is declared annually by the government of Saskatchewan to raise awareness about missing persons, discuss prevention strategies, and promote the services and supports available to families of missing persons in the province. It's organized by the Saskatchewan Missing Persons Partnership, SMPP, as part of its commitment to preventing missing persons cases and supporting families of missing persons. The partnership includes representatives from Indigenous groups, police services, the provincial government, and community agencies across the province. So on the heels of Missing Persons Week this year, May 5th is also kind of goes hand in hand, is a National Day of Awareness and Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit People. It's also known as Red Dress Day. This day brings awareness and calls for participation from all Canadians, including speaking out against violence against Indigenous women, girls, and gender diverse people. The day is about building awareness, similar to Missing Persons Week, of this ongoing harm and honoring those we have lost and their families. So all of that being said, we understand the critical and unending importance of raising awareness of missing persons, and specific to the story we'll hear about today about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. But we want to encourage our listeners, as always, to continue your learning and listening and reporting of missing persons all year round. We don't just limit it to this 1 week or, a certain day. This is a 365 initiative here, and we need to keep our eyes and ears open all the time.
Yeah.
So please keep that in mind. And so why are we talking about this? Why is it important to be informed and aware? Well, aside from the obvious, we want to find these people who are missing. We need to remember that a missing person is a real life. This is not just a number. This is not just a scary stat. A life missing too soon or for far too long without reason or understanding. A life horribly missed and plaguing not just the families of the missing person, but our communities at large. They are a life. And with every missing person, families and communities lose their sense of trust and feeling of safety. And so we need to band together, really, as a community, to listen, to learn, to keep watch, and honestly, to take action to see some real change.
Absolutely. So what are we dealing with in terms of missing people on a national level? Honestly, it's actually hard to say because national data is very vague and data is reported and shared differently across the provinces. The National Centre for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains seems to be Canada's main hub within the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, which helps police, medical examiners, and coroners across Canada investigate missing people and unidentified bodies. Their website shares profiles of missing people and unidentified bodies when investigators ask. But sadly, not all cases are shown, as it's up to the lead investigator to decide which ones are published.
I would assume that this is based on available evidence or the circumstances of a missing person, and it would be deemed necessarily to bring it to the national level.
Yeah. That does seem to be the case, but I don't really understand why that necessarily makes sense, because I feel like every person matters. And
of course.
Every person should be a national story.
100%.
But here are some of the stats of what's available nationally. So according to the Centre's most recent fact sheet from 2022, 57% of missing adult reports involved males. 52% of all missing persons reports, so all sexes, adults and children, involved adults. 13% of all missing adults were Indigenous, and 62% of all missing Indigenous adults were female.
Wow.
British Columbia has the highest number of missing adult reports per capita, with 273 reports per 100,000 people, followed by Saskatchewan with 146 reports per 100,000 people. And our
population is so small compared to
much
BC.
smaller.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So that's a huge number of people. Saskatchewan had the highest number of missing children and youth reports per capita, with 398 reports per 100,000 people, followed by Manitoba with 291 reports per 100,000 people. And 27% of missing children, youth were Indigenous, and 63% of all missing Indigenous children or youth were female. So when we dig further into Saskatchewan data specifically, according to the Saskatchewan Association of Chiefs of Police Missing Persons Database, that's a big name, there were 143 missing persons reported between 1935 and 2023. So this is still pretty on par with the numbers from 2022, which means that the situation doesn't seem to be getting better. We should also note that any data collection, we can only account for what is actually reported. There are some assumptions made that not all missing persons are reported.
Yeah, and even the number, between 1935 and 2023, that doesn't seem like that really captures. 143 people?
No.
I feel like there's a lot more
Oh,
than
100%.
that.
Which is, why I think that, there's definitely a lot of people who don't make it onto these lists.
Of course, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
So based on these numbers in Saskatchewan over the last 88 years specifically, 104 are male and 39 are female.
Oh, that's surprising.
Mm-hmm. Indigenous people are way overrepresented as missing persons, though, with 73 of the 143 being Indigenous.
Oh my God.
73. So a huge portion.
Yeah.
65% are Caucasian and 3 are from visible minorities. And then 50% of these 39 reported missing women are Indigenous, which far exceeds the proportion of the female population of Indigenous people in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
way.
the population, I read something that was around between 15 and 20, 17% of the population of Saskatchewan is Indigenous. So
Right.
like that's
And then 50%
wild.
of the women missing are Indigenous.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That's
that
way
is
too
wild.
much.
So with this very limited information, because it is, keeping this all in mind around the magnitude of missing people in Canada and Saskatchewan, this episode is focusing on diving into one particular story and experience of the 143 that are reported.
Mm-hmm.
Today's story is the story of missing person Happy Charles. Before we invite our guests to openly share their stories of their missing loved one, Happy Charles, we'd first like to introduce you to some of the kind of high-level context behind her case so that they don't have to go through this pain to share those details.
Yeah. So Happy Charles, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a cousin, and a friend to many, was born March 22nd, 1975. She's 5'1" and weighs approximately 115 pounds. She has brown eyes and dark brown, black hair, has a scar on her left cheek and a rose tattoo on her right hand. Happy was last seen around midnight on April 3rd, 2017, just over 7 years ago, when she was 42 years old. Surveillance footage shows her in the vicinity of Prince Albert Collegiate Institute, the PACI, on 45 20th Street West in Prince Albert. She's missed by 4 daughters and 1 son, and many more loved ones wondering what happened to her. If this describes someone that you've seen recently, every tip matters, so please do contact Prince Albert Police at 306-953-4222 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. That said, we'd like to invite our guest interviewer, Katie Bird from All Nations Hope Network, and Carson and Regina Poitras, who've traveled several hours from northern Saskatchewan to be here in person with us today to courageously share their story as parents of Happy Charles. Through their voices, we'll explore the complexities, the pain, the resilience that define the search for a missing loved one.
Tansei Ambawashte. Hello, I'm Katie Bird, a Nakota woman from Carry the Kettle First Nation, working now as a project coordinator at All Nations Hope Network, located in Regina, Saskatchewan, on Treaty 4 territory and homeland of the Métis Nation. I previously held a position as a sort of cultural support, working with families of missing or murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. I was invited here to be in a similar role for our guests, Regina and Carson. I'd like to thank the YWCA Regina, the Scaries, and the women of Raise Her Co. for sharing their platform with us to highlight the importance of Missing Persons Week. It's my honor to speak with Regina and Carson, the parents of Happy Charles. I'll be interviewing them to listen and hear their experiences, to learn more about Happy, to raise awareness, and show that there is a human element to missing people. Together, we're going to put a face and a story to the scary statistics. Thank you for honoring us by sharing your story, and thank you for your courage to share these stories. Kinanas Komiten, Penamaya, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about Happy, who she is as a person, and what are some stories you would like to share about her?
Happy is a mother of 4 girls and 1 boy, and she's also, a grandmother of 7, going to be 8 grandchildren. She's a sister to our 4 boys, and she's a daughter. She's a happy-go-lucky person, always tried to make people laugh, make funny things and make her grandchildren and children laugh by doing funny things, and like the outdoors. She always liked to go out to the trap line and do some crazy stuff with her mother.
Her mom does lots of crazy stuff. Yeah, about this time of the year is a hard time for us because that's when she would like to go catching suckers with me when they're spawning. We catch them by hand and feet, and she always caught them by the tail for some reason. Was able to get them onto shore. Even when she was a small child, she'd do that. And she could skin a rabbit so fast and cook. Have a fire going within minutes. She loved the outdoors and going on walks every day. She always had to be outside every day.
And fixing chickens.
Yeah.
Which was
You say she used to catch chickens?
Bush chickens.
Oh, fixed them.
grab them by the wings.
Yeah.
Done.
Holy. So you guys have a trap line?
Yes.
Yeah. So she lived that kind of traditional life.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. Did a lot of hunting and trapping, fishing with square hooks.
The nets.
The best way to fish. Make sure you get something on the table that way. Don't always guarantee what you're going to get, though.
Mm-hmm.
I know we put the net out before in one area and got lots of good walleyes, put it back in, and then the next day, all we got were suckers. So it's a hit and a miss, but it's fun. And it's good. It's good to, there's no distractions when you're out there, like with cell phones and stuff like that.
And she taught her daughters how to skin the animals, how to fix fish, smoke fish, stuff like that. She liked doing that.
Who taught Happy these things?
Her grandmother. Not me. She taught me some stuff. Because she'd hang around with her grandmother a lot. She was raised by her till she was 9. She lived with my mom and dad.
Is that a tradition that you guys have in your family?
Yeah, pretty much. There's always one child that'll stay with the grandparents and helps them out.
That's how it is in my family, too. It was my older sister that had to stay with my grandparents for a bit.
We have one grandson that stays with us. He's 12 now, but he's getting really tall. Very respectful.
And they're learning the ways now, too?
Yes.
He's learning the ways of the sweat lodge now, and learning to learn more about that all the time. So we've been bugging me to hurry up and get the sweat going.
Oh, yeah. You guys mentioned you guys have a sweat lodge in your backyard.
Yes.
And he brings the rocks in for us to grandfathers.
That's beautiful. I like that they're learning those old ways. When we spoke on Friday, you guys mentioned that you guys were one of the people that stuck with the old traditions, whereas everybody around you was a little bit more stuck with Christianity or live in the Christian way or
hiding their stuff and not making it visible and then shunning people who did continue to, which was tough. It was tough on us, but it was tough on us and it was good in a way. We never gave up. We never were intimidated by that because we believed in what the spirits were telling us. And so we followed that. We tried to convince people to teach their children the same things that we're teaching ours because it grounds them. So it took a number of years, but it finally started to come around where they realized that that's what they have to do. And so now we have more and more people who are coming out to try and learn that stuff. But a lot of it's not taught in the right way because it takes years and years and years of learning and following your elder, asking the questions and learning the ways of the traditional medicines, the traditional ceremonies. It's tough. Like it took me a long time to get to where we are at.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that it's at least coming back. So there is hope for our young people in our communities because our communities are really, really dysfunctional right now. With all the different drugs and alcohol that are out there and the different, I guess, ways of living being portrayed on the internet and television, because it's almost like they're glorifying gang life and their drug life, and the young people are sort of embracing that in that community, and it's not right. It's not good. We're losing way too many young people to senseless deaths by violence, by overdoses, and it's got to change. We know that with our daughter, a lot of that has to do with a couple of things. One was domestic violence, which again is portrayed by back in the day was when Happy was watching television, was a lot of that on television, and also to drugs, so domestic violence and drugs are a bad combination. You end up with why we're here today. I'm not sure why the young men in her era, because it is very predominant in that era, why they're always beating on their women like that. And it's not right. We try to teach our granddaughters that they're important and that they shouldn't live that way. We still struggle with some of that with our granddaughters getting stuck in those types of relationships, and we try to empower them to live better, be better, and to not show their children that. What we're seeing is a cycle of different abuses, traumas that are driving our communities to be the way they are. So if the kids are saying, well, this is how we grew up, this is how we're going to live when we grow up, we want to see that cycle broken.
Thank you. Do you have any stories, Regina?
Well, Happy was born when I was 15. So we sort of grew up together, and my parents would, help me with her and everything else. And then I started working right away. And Happy continued staying with my parents after I moved out, and she wanted to live with them. So that's where I let her stay. And then later on, when I got married to Carson, and Happy was already with me, like Carson said, the domestic violence and the drugs and the drinking, there was kids running around all over the place, and other kids will join in with them to be accepted. And she was always very family oriented. Very first time I went to a sweat lodge was with her. She talked me into going. She was in a boarding home in Saskatoon, and they had gone out to a sweat lodge, and she wanted me to go in with her. So I did. And that was my first experience. And then years later, when Carson joined up with his elder, then I started going more. And so did Happy. She went a lot with her kids too, her girls. And she always wanted a son. And then her son came along, but she was a really tiny little guy. I bet she just loved him so much. And so did the girls. They really took to their little brother. And yeah, she's very missed. And the grandchildren would really enjoy to see their grandfathers. You should always go and get them and walk around with them and stuff and buying snacks for them. And she spoiled our girls whenever she get the chance.
So she enjoyed being a grandma?
Oh, yeah. And
What does she like being called? Cookum?
Cookum, yeah.
Yeah.
And she was excited too. She was going to have more grandchildren.
That's beautiful. So how does Happy's absence impact you and your family?
There's a void there. I don't know how to describe it. She's missing almost like a generation. And we've had to take over the role as grandparents to Happy's grandchildren. And we're getting older. And we can't lift them as much and play with them as much. But we try. And the girls still need their mother. Those girls all grew up around the sweat lodge. We raised them, helped Happy raise them. And she'd come over and visit with them a lot. And she'd come visit me at work every day. And she loved to do hair. Like, she always cut my hair and styled it. She was a family hairdresser. And she always had the new styles for the kids. And the same style for me all the time. But she was good at that, you know. She just had a knack for it. She didn't have any training for it. She just knew what to do. Even when she was in boarding school, she'd come home and the boys would be there. She didn't have any kids of her own then. And she'd start dressing them up the way the city kids dressed. So these boys would be running around in grunge or whatever. And they'd have their hair all styled differently. And she'd even sometimes dye their hair different. So the boys grew up with their older sister being their stylist, I guess.
I love that. Having a cool older sister.
Yeah. She always came out with new ideas.
Happy's absence is like that piece is missing for her to teach her daughters, their sonny. I know they sort of reach out sometimes to the wrong people to get some of that guidance, learning how to live life, and so that piece is missing. Brother-sister relationship is missing with our boys because they're always wondering where she's at, what they can do, and they're always watching the news, remains being found and all this kind of stuff, and people being found not knowing where they are, and they're very resourceful, but they shouldn't have to do that, right? And that shouldn't have to happen to any family.
So in terms of supports, have you and your family had much support during this process? Was there anything lacking or a support that has been most helpful?
There's virtually no support. And still to this day, there's not much support. I know we've tried, and Regina can speak to this, that I never tried it, but the hearing parts, she'll speak to that. She has a good story with that. I won't speak to that, but they tried that. Some of those types of supports, that was the only one that was available to us, and it didn't work out. The last time we came to Regina here, we met a woman, a psychologist, who did help. But yeah, it wasn't her role, but she volunteered to help our family out, so it was good. So a couple of the girls and Regina have access to her and it's working out. But in terms of the sports that were tried to be provided to us, they did not work out. Mind you, Caring Hearts was the only one. There needs to be other sports available and more readily available. Like, I know we're from Laurent, so it's a little tougher because we're not within the bigger centers, but there's still there's phone, there's technologies that you can reach out, and that's all they've done with this psychologist that they're doing, but done by phone. But the girls are struggling, sometimes more so than not. And how they deal with it is not in a good way or in a healthy way. Had they had that support in the beginning, I think maybe they'd be in a better shape. We have our main support, who we brought here today, Debbie Thomas. She's a big supporter of trying to help us find our daughter and also to get us to do things that we don't want to do, but we probably had to do to make it easier for us to do things like this. She forced us to go out into communities and talk about our daughter. And first time we went out to community, it was the scariest thing to do, and it was the hardest thing to do, because the first time we did it, we broke down lots and it was tough. But after a few communities gone by, it's still tough. But other than that, there are no supports for any families. Like, we've been here before at a gathering of 20 other families, and all our stories were the same. We had to reinvent the wheel that was already invented millions of times because there was nobody out there to tell us this is how you're supposed to do this. And the holistic searches, how you gather the information, how you conduct the search, and all this other kind of stuff. All the families went through that on their own and devised a way of creating that how-to list. And if it's already been done, why do that? Why not have somebody that can provide that support and show those families? Because it takes up time. And we also got a binder and had a checklist that you're supposed to go through every night that you're on your search, and you're supposed to fill it out. The first night we looked at it and said, how the heck are we going to do this? When all we're focused on is trying to find our daughter. When we're going on a search, we wake up, get ready and get going, go have some meat, and then take off searching for the whole day. And times our days didn't end until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So at the end of the day, how are we going to go through this binder and decide to write down, okay, this is what happened today and all this kind of stuff. So we missed a lot of stuff. I think if they wanted that binder filled out, they'd have a person there to sort of follow the family and say, oh, wait, this is what happened, rather than the family having to worry about that. In hindsight, that binder would have done nothing for us. Even if we did fill it out, it would have done nothing. Supports from the community, because our daughter went missing in Prince Albert rather than Orange, is quite a distance for us to travel. Each time we had to go search, like every week we went to go search. And the expense of having to stay in a hotel, meals, gas, and all that kind of stuff was quite extensive. So it was tough, and it was tough to try to get that help. The help that we received within the city of Prince Albert in the beginning was very, very good. Like, we met lots of different people, lots of new different, I guess we'd call them now family members, because we're a family of missing persons. And the people like Debbie, because Debbie comes from Saskatchewan. So, and we never knew her from rolling around until our daughter went missing. We meet a lot of good people with good intentions to help. We do meet a lot of people who like to take advantage of families of missing people. Like those people who claim to want to help, but you got to pay them big money. We see that. We're not taught that way. Our elders said, no, if it comes to money, you just walk away. That's not a genuine help. As traditional people, we do help, or have helped a lot of people in their physical illnesses, and we've never charged. Never. All we asked for was tobacco. And our feeling is, especially with a family with a missing person, that should be priority for somebody who has that gift, to be able to offer that. And the families will, and have, when they deem it successful, I guess, that they will offer whatever they can in order to provide that compensation for that information. So those are some of the things that are going on in regards to supports. I know our different organizations that are out there that are receiving MMIW dollars. I'm not sure what they're earmarked for, but they're not for the ban. The government announced millions and millions of dollars to help MMIW, but they didn't really advertise what that help is, like whether it is helping our families to get through the searches, the finding of their daughter or their missing loved one, or supports for mental health. But it doesn't seem to trickle down. And the ones that are hurting the most are the kids of the missing mother. So that's got to change. And that information, or that sort of has to get out there to the public. That sure, yeah, you hear on the radio and television that there's all these MMIW dollars that are out there to help support the families, but it doesn't get that far. Like, even our home community, we've had an MMIW worker hired, but we never hear from them. and whenever we ask for help, we get denied. But it's tough. It's tough on families when they hear that, okay, we got all these different funding agencies that are going to get this dollars and they didn't help you. Then we go to approach them and we are denied for anything. And we can't even get a billboard or a poster made by those dollars. So we've had to rely on, again, Debbie to help us get our billboards up. We've got 3 billboards up. Anyway, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have them. Even though there's millions and millions of dollars that are out there that are supposed to help us. But that support system has to change.
Maybe they should ask the families and then find out what's needed and then go from there instead of...
Literally just thinking that.
Yeah. Because at one time when I was talking to Happy outside where I worked at the college, she was saying, Mom, what do you really want to do instead of sitting in this office all the time? I said, I really want to help those homeless people. I hear them all the time in the bush over there. Then she said, what do you want to help them with? And I said, I want to build this great big place and I'm going to put them all in there and they're all going to be really happy. And she said, no, they're not. They're going to take off on you. They decided they want to be friends and they want to be together, and that's where they're going to be. She said, you can't go telling them they can't drink, they can't do this, and go stick them in a building. I said, well, what do you think I should do? Why don't you ask them what they want? No, I'm scared of them. She had a good laugh. She said, well, leave them alone then.
I like that story you guys told me on Friday about it was an MMIW program. And they're like, just take out your frustrations on the hide.
Yeah. Oh, but I'm not taught to do it that way.
Like, oh, that poor animal. Yes, Carson said that you had a story to share about carrying hearts.
Oh, that was during COVID, so I thought I'd reach out to them because I still had their cards. I thought I'd reach out to them so that I'd pave the way for the girls and see how it is to, get the feel of it. So I talked to a lady there, and the third time I talked to her, she said, how are you doing now? Like, we were talking on and off, or she'd call once every 2 weeks. I said, I'm starting to feel really closed in. I need to go to a sweat. And then she said, what's in it? And I said, well, that's a sweat lodge where we go in and pray. Oh, I think I heard of them. Aren't they hot? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, can't you take your tobacco to a sauna? And I said, it wouldn't be the same. She came from a completely different culture, and she didn't understand my culture. I'm sure she was trying to do her best to.
That's a really good point to make, though, is there's got to be some sort of connection there culturally.
Yeah.
It's in the name even, missing and murder Indigenous women. They're living. And as you guys said earlier, Happy is living that traditional life, right? And
yeah,
it'd be good to relate to that with the people who are supposed to provide you care.
We did go meet with Caring Hearts there a couple of years back. They actually called us to come in.
Oh, yeah.
And we met with them and we discussed what was wrong with their organization. And they said they were going to take all the information down and then get back to us. We still haven't heard from them. But they said they're going to try and fix it. So it was not, didn't know what was going on because we did tell them, but I'm not sure how they proceeded.
The communication sometimes. Shit. Well, speaking about support, how can we as communities and nations better support families with loved ones who are missing? How would you do it?
I think there needs to be an office for a missing person, not just Indigenous, any missing person. Why I say any missing person stemmed from our case. Our case is considered a high-profile case within Saskatchewan, and both the City Police and the RCMP. I found out why our case was a high-profile case. I think 3 years ago, we went to YWCA, went to a meeting, and the RCMP indicated that our case was a high-profile case. So I asked why. Why is our case considered a high-profile case in Saskatchewan? And he said, well, because it's always in the news. And we've always took the police to task, and then that we're always trying to get things changed. And we're always in the media, And I say, well, any missing person should be a high profile. Because, everybody is important. All the slogans out there, every lives matter and every child matters, and all these things are out there. So you shouldn't label any one single family's daughter or person a high profile case. It should all be high profile. So there's an office that we've been advocating for. We wanted to go into Orange and one in Prince Albert for a missing person. And in that office, there would be a person that would be able to initially take the information down and validate the information that their loved one is missing, but also have resources available to them to support that family in all aspects of a missing person. Like how to do the searches, how to go the road of advocating for dollars to help further their loved one, how to access the databases for all the different agencies that are out there where they possibly could be, like the homeless shelters, the women's shelters, hospitals, the jails, or all these different things that would be at their fingertips to be able to help that person so that the person with a missing loved one isn't alone, and be able to communicate that information back to them. I think that would be our first step in helping a person get missing. The different agencies that are out there, and then the different, traditional people that are out there. Because right now, we are not able to access traditional people that require a monetary donation because it's not set up that way within the health system, right? And a lot of the people who are traditional people do need that help. They need to buy their firewood and all this kind of stuff to put on ceremonies if you want to do a specific ceremony for a person. We even ran into that problem here last night. We were contacted by a person that may be able to see where our daughter is, but it's going to cost way too much for us. We're supposed to do that tonight, and we found out how much it was going to cost, and we just can't afford that. But those are those types of things that are out there too. There's all sorts of things that would help the family, but all cost money. So it's tough. Having a dedicated person within a community that can not only help the person or to help the family, but know what it's like to have a missing person is key. So that you can understand what that family is actually going through. Because we've run into different people who are working for MMYW that do not have a clue as to what we're going through. Again, ours is kind of unique as well because we still haven't found our daughter. A lot of the missing persons have been found, and there is that corridor, but we haven't found our daughter yet. So it's a little different for us because we can't close that chapter. We can't say that she is gone for sure 100%. It's always a slim piece of hope out there that she's still alive.
Number one, like Carson said, to have that office or that support person that could contact the different agencies and the police and everybody else. But when Happy went missing, I continued to phone, but there was no missing persons worker in PA. The advertisement was out, they said, but nobody was there. Nobody was hired yet. So nobody would take the call. They told me to call back later. And then when they finally did agree that she was missing, they did a police release, and it said the family of Happy requests. They didn't say the police are requesting. And then the community, they could have maybe helped with putting up signs or something. So there's a couple of people we were able to get to photocopy and make missing person posters. And we got those out there.
Quite a few of the girls took them.
Mm-hmm. And we ended up taking the girls off the search because we didn't want them finding any. Because they were the ones helping us most. They were running around all over the place, asking people. When we went to PA, we kind of shielded them, so we didn't want them to be out there too much.
Is there anything else you would like to add about Happy?
Well, about Happy, one thing she really liked was holidays. Like Christmas was really big for her, birthdays, and Halloween was her favorite. Every year she'd get dressed up and get me to dress up too. And we'd walk around with the kids. But we got dressed up completely. She just loved those holidays.
Any supports that you've encountered along the way?
Our elders always come out and they are always there for us still. That's one of the traditional values that have to be, I guess, instilled in the minds of the young people. But in this day and age, money isn't everything. So those kind of people are few and far in between to find. So we're very fortunate that we have our elders that do support us in that way. We've had 4 walks that we did. The first one was Bring Happy Spirit Home, which was spearheaded by one of Happy's daughters, Marcia. And that was a tough walk, very tough walk, but it was also a walk that we realized that she was coming. The different animals and stuff, nature would give us hints as to her presence being there. And it also brought together the family and our friends. But doing those types of things are very tough because there isn't the support there really to help fund something like that. Because it took us a week to walk from Prince Albert to Lounge and then feed everybody and make sure everybody's watered and to house them. We had tents that we set up and fed everybody once a day was done. We did a target of about 32 kilometers per day walking. But when a person wants to do an awareness walk like that, there needs to be better supports for it. We didn't have on those walks any mental supports, and we probably should have. Medical supports we didn't have, and again, we probably should have. I believe my wife is still dealing with her problems with her shins from that walk, because she'd walked most of it, which was something that she shouldn't have done at her age. But those types of things need to be there. The different ideas that we've come up with, we relied mostly on Debbie. Yes, for the sports in order for us to come up with the dollars in order to put them on, which isn't right because Debbie is from Saskatoon, not from our community, not from our family, not from originally from our circle of friends, but she stepped up to the plate and really helped us and shown us that there are people out there that do genuinely care about somebody with missing persons, because she not only helps our family, but she helps other families as well. Again, there it goes, or few and far between to find too. So
We did have mental supports because our elder would come up every night and would sit with us in a circle. And anybody that had any issues or wanted to talk, they talked, and we could just have a sharing circle. And he showed up every night.
but we should have some during the day there too. There were some issues there.
There were some people that were breaking down and stuff that needed that help. We didn't have any of that. But it was really good to connect with everybody. We got so much closer, more connected. I walked the whole distance except for 10 kilometers. I guess I should have maybe practiced a little bit before I started walking.
250 kilometers was a little bit of a stretch on the first one.
And when we got into town, there was people that greeted us, and we sat down and had a feast,
Yes.
which was really beautiful.
Sounds like you guys spent a lot of resources and need a lot of resources in order to do this kind of work.
Well, you know, we thought about all that we've been doing and all the advocating that we've been doing, and only solution that we come up with is why we're doing this is that Happy would have wanted us to. Because Happy cared so much for her other fellow human beings, male, female, whatever, but she always wanted to help people. So I'm sure that's what drives us to keep doing what we do and to make sure that the word gets out there for not only our family, but all families with a missing person. And that would make her feel good.
It's beautiful. Would you like to share one more story about Happy that brings a smile to your faces?
You know, it's tough, eh?
Mm.
Because we haven't seen Happy in so long. It's tough trying to think of all the things that we used to do today because we've been so focused on trying to find out where she is.
I know that you guys talked about when you guys were doing your walk, that you did initially have a lot of support, but after a while, it did kind of dwindle, especially this coming year.
Okay, we used to have walks in PA, and a woman, Shirley Henderson from PHC Women's Commission, would help us out financially to bring us into the PA and then to do the walk and to do a meal and to do speeches and stuff. This year, we were not contacted at all from PHC or PA Police about doing a walk, which we thought was going to happen every year until we found our daughter. John Bergen, the former police chief of PA Police, was forced to retire here last year. And since that time, we've had difficulties with communications with PA Police, more so with the police chief. We spoke to him once at one of our walks, and that was the last time we spoke to him. Haven't heard from him since. He hasn't reached out or anything. So I questioned that with our investigator, why we haven't heard from the current police chief for PA Police. And she said, well, he's probably too busy. And not only that, John probably had a soft spot in his heart for us. And that's why he kept on being in contact with you. She said that she didn't think that the current police chief would ever contact us like that, which is sad, you know, because when we had John doing that with us, it showed us and the rest of the province that, yes, they do care. It makes a big impact, you know, it speaks volumes as to the relationship between the police and the people. Without that, it seems like we're very insignificant and we don't matter. Once again, we're back to where we started from at the very beginning of our journey of when our daughter went missing, which is kind of sad. We had thought we had broke those barriers with what we were doing, and we thought that things would have changed with not only PA Police, but all other policing services, the different city polices and the RCMP. But apparently it's reverted back to day one, which isn't good. We need to have agencies like that do better. Things have got to be done better in order for the public to policing relationships to be improved, but to improve even on the results of a missing person. We need to be taken seriously. We need to be heard. We need to be treated as somebody of importance. Again, like that our daughter does matter and that they do care. And John showed that. John genuinely showed that. Like, he did things with us that were very out of the ordinary of a police chief. Like, yes, he did come to a sweat with us. Yes, he lasted all 4 rounds. He was like a lobster when he was done, though. But he did do it. He would meet us for dinner or meet us for supper whenever we came through PA. We didn't go through that often, but, you know, every once in a while we were touch base with him, and he would take us out for a meal or for coffee, and we'd sit there and we'd talk, and he'd ask, and genuinely ask how the girls were doing, because he was concerned on what supports may or may not have been in place for them. Since he's been retired, it's been like a void there once again, because nobody cares. The whole justice system, the way it is right now, too, is something that we're not very pleased with. The past few years, we've come to the conclusion that we do not want a conviction if something has happened to our daughter. All we want to do is bring Happy home, and that's coming sort of right back to our first walk, because our first walk was called Bring Happy Home, and that's what we wanted to do, bring Happy home. So all we want to do is bring her home and put that chapter to rest. As you look at the different convictions that are going out there on somebody who hurts or kills an Indigenous woman, the sentencing they get is like a slap on the wrist. Again, it's like the justice system saying, oh, they don't matter. 2 years less a day to go to jail, and you come back out and do it all over again. There's no rehabilitation. There's no remorse. There's no nothing like that. And it's sad. It's sad that it's being allowed to happen to our Indigenous women to be killed off like that. It's like almost like another genocide of trying to get rid of the Native people. And it's hard. It's hard on the heart to realize that's going on. And it seems to be going on more and more every day. There's more violence going on towards women, and there are more deaths that should not be happening. Too many lives ruined.
Definitely give a shout out to Debbie and John, their supports over the years. So when I was working in harm reduction, they came up with a slogan, nothing about us without us. So basically that is the idea that you cannot have a program and you cannot continue on this journey if the people who are being most affected by it are not in it. They're not the ones voicing their opinions. They're not the ones that are the most affected by the situation. You guys are the most affected. And from there, her children are most affected, her grandchildren are most affected, her friends, relatives, and it goes out into kind of a ripple effect. Because you're most affected, they shouldn't be able to do these programmings without you and your opinion. That would
be ideal.
Right? It would be. I know that from previous families that I worked with, they too were kind of advocating that kind of thing, where they're like, they have all of this funding, but where is it for us? Where is it that for us? And you guys also reiterated that same idea, like, why is there all of these programs, but we don't know about them? I think one of the questions that we asked previously with how do you want the communities and nations to help you or assist? Because I think in a way it gives them an idea of what we can do to support, but at the same time, we should just be going to you, right? We should be being a support like Debbie, being a support like John.
What about if you made a committee of people that have been through it? A committee set up of people that have already been there, and they know the steps to take and how to help the family and what to expect and where to phone.
I like that. A committee, an office, somebody to help, and people who've been affected helping people who've been affected.
Because they're the only ones that would know.
Absolutely. Regina, Carson, I would like to express how grateful we are to the both of you for coming to share about Happy, your journeys, and your experiences on your journeys. We wish nothing but the best for you both and your families and relatives. I would like to thank the Scaries for supporting us in getting these stories out to the public, and especially thank the families for their time. I would also like to remind the audience that every missing person has a story and the people who are missing them, and that is the importance of Missing Persons Week. If you are the family or friend of a missing person, there are places you can turn to for support. While there are a number of supports available, today we have chosen to list those that Carson and Regina felt are most useful. The support line for those affected by missing or murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2 SLGBTQIA+ people at 1-844-413-6649. Caring Hearts in Regina, 306-523-2780, or caringheartsk.ca/missing-persons. Lefen Michif Otipimisoak has created a grandmother's remembering toolkit that is specific to Métis families with missing and murdered women and girls. Families can request the toolkit by contacting the organization at info@métiswomen.org. For more information on missing persons, you can Google the Provincial Missing Persons Partnership.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Just wow. Being a parent, I mean, we're both parents. I cannot even fathom what it would be like to have a child go missing, just at any age, let alone having to recount the story multiple times over and over for years, and how it feels to others. It's just...
And just like that unknowing piece is really tough to hear too.
Yeah, it haunts you. So we want to say thank you so very much from the bottom of our hearts to the Poitresses for unearthing those painful stories and really courageously sharing your experiences with us and our listeners. The sheer fact of not knowing enough about what happened, who was involved, what led to your loved one going missing would be so infuriating, like you said. It creates so many challenges as well for those looking to help because they don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, and we're so limited in the information that's even shared online. Like the statistics that we show, there's so many holes in the data that you don't have the whole picture. Makes it so tough. Through our research, we did find a light at the end of the tunnel, though. And Talitha, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we heard from Carson that there are a lot of services that aren't actually very helpful currently. But there is something that's being developed that hopefully can help on a grander scale and provide some support and at least spread some more awareness. So this shining light is all thanks to a Canadian academic named Sasha Reed, who has made it her mission to make missing persons information easier to access and understand through the creation of a database on all missing and murdered individuals from across Canada compiled in one place. And it dates back to cases starting in 1805.
Woo!
Yeah. Her goal is to ensure that every missing person or every murdered person is remembered and honored, and that their humanity is restored, ensuring that they're never forgotten. Currently, there are over 12,000 people whose names are in the database, made up by a group of volunteers called the Midnight Order. I love that name. It feels like justice.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Order.
These volunteers are 7 women who work regular jobs during the day as academics and lawyers and therapists and do data entry every night. They collect information about each victim, like their race, age, and gender, as well as details about where they were last seen or where they were found. They also note if the person has had any mental health issues or addiction problems and other things, like if they were involved in sex work, hitchhiking, or were part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. If you're intrigued by this, which, if you can tell, we sure are, this database project is the focus of a new 5-part TV series called Sasha Reed and the Midnight Order, set to air on Freeform and stream on Hulu this year in 2024. So be sure to watch for it. And I hope that it comes available much sooner rather than later and we can actually use it.
Totally a must-see for sure.
Yeah.
So with that, we'd like to leave things on an uplifting note for our listeners, as this has been a heavy episode. So thank you so much for sticking with us and listening to the whole story. And as we wrap up, we want to also thank SaskTel and the Saskatchewan Federation of Labor for your support in making this episode possible. And really just want to encourage you all to take some time to search for and visit the missing persons database in your province or wherever you're listening from. For those fellow Saskatchewanians, you can find the local missing persons database at missing.sacp.ca. And keep these faces, keep these lives, keep these loved ones in the top of your minds and in your hearts and in your prayers. So thank you again. And of course, if you have any tips, please do call your local police right away.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us, listening and learning for this special episode of the Scaries Honoring Missing Persons Week. Please share this episode, rate and subscribe wherever you are listening, and stay tuned for more ways to make a positive impact. Together, we can make the world a little less scary for women and girls.
Follow us on Instagram at RaiseHerCo and at scaries.podcast, and on TikTok at RaiseHerCo. Remember, change starts with awareness and action and listening to people, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. Thank you for being a part of the Scaries community and for making the world a little less scary to exist as a woman. Bye.
Bye.